I'm Jonah Peretti. I'm the CEO and founder of BuzzFeed. And BuzzFeed is a social content site where we help media spread all across the web through platforms like Facebook and Twitter and StumbleUpon. There's been a lot of work done building out these networks, and I think now's the time to figure out how do things spread. Why does one idea become popular, another one fizzle? How do you make something that when people see it, they'll freak out and say, this is awesome, and share with all of their friends? I started BuzzFeed. Really it goes back to when I was in grad school at the MIT Media Lab, and I was supposed to be writing my master's thesis, and like a lot of graduate students, I was procrastinating, and I went to Nike's website. This is back in 2001, and they had just launched Nike ID, which was a service where you could customize your shoes and put a word on the side of the shoes. And being a smartass, I customized a pair of shoes with the word Sweatshop, because I thought, oh, is Nike going to send me a pair of shoes that say Sweatshop under the swoosh? And they wrote back and said, this is inappropriate slang, so we can't put them on the shoe. And then I responded and I said, no, actually, it's in the dictionary. It means a shop or factory where workers toil under unhealthy conditions. Now can you send them to me? And we had this sort of epic back and forth. And eventually they said, well, we reserve the right to not send the shoes. And I said, okay, fine, but can you at least send me a picture of the 12-year-old Vietnamese girl who stitches them together? And then they didn't write back. And I looked at it and I was like, oh, this is kind of funny. So I pasted it together, sent it to 12 friends. Then those friends thought it was funny. They sent it to some of their friends. Then it became one of these early email forwards. It ended up hitting activist lists, and then reporters started picking it up. I didn't really know that much about the Sweatshop issue, but I still ended up on the Today Show with the Nike's head of PR and Katie Couric debating sweatshop labor, which I really wasn't that qualified to even talk about. And I was like, how did that happen? And then I started to think about this phenomenon, which is sort of a new phenomenon, that you can tell 12 people about something and have it reach millions of people, and started to think about what I started to call the Bored at Work network, which is the millions of bored office workers who are connected to high-speed internet connections, and they spend half of their day sharing media and passing stuff on Facebook and on Twitter and on social networks, and the other half of their day working, and that collectively they're creating a network that's bigger than any of the traditional media networks, and you can literally reach hundreds of millions of people if you make something that the Bored at Work network likes. And now you're starting to see the emergence of sort of the board in line network of people on their mobile phones in line in the supermarket or whatever, which is kind of a newer area. But it occurred to me that people weren't really programming content for this new world, networked world, where people are sharing content with each other, and that's the primary way that it's spreading. And so BuzzFeed really emerged out of a lot of work making memes and viral things on the web and trying to understand why is it that they spread and how did they spread. There are so many things that I wish I had been told, when I was getting started. I made lots of sort of basic mistakes around, like, how do you incorporate? You shouldn't create an LLC. You should create a Delaware-based C corporation, and you should you should do your legal documents this way or that way. You should do your options this way or that way. Here's how founder shares work. Here's how this works. There's all of these sort of boring technical things. They're all pretty easy to do, but there's tons of things that I didn't know. And when I meet someone who's starting a company for the first time, it's not one thing that they didn't know. It's like 25 things that they didn't know, and you could run through them from legal things to financing to product to team building to hiring. I mean, it's like there's so many factors, and I think to be a good entrepreneur, you have to be comfortable with being more of a generalist. And it's nice if you have one area of expertise or one thing that you're really passionate about, but then you have to be kind of good at lots of things.